36 years ago, I called Rock Hill, South Carolina home. In the fall of 1984, I was a newlywed returning to finish my senior year in college. At least I thought I was returning for my senior year in college. Apparently, at the time, my definition of success, well, it left me with 57 hours remaining to complete my senior year. 57 hours. 2 years of school in 9 months. It was going to be a challenge to overcome. But I was signed up to overcome the challenge as I had promised my new wife, Lisa, that I would graduate on time. 57 hours in 9 months, and we were poor. I mean, really poor. We were so poor that the mice who shared our married dorm, they felt sorry for us. While school and being poor was creating stress in my life, I did have a bit of hope as I was preparing for the upcoming baseball season. I knew it would be my last season playing, but I also knew that when the season ended, I would get a job coaching baseball. Yes, the stress would diminish as I would have one more great season on the field, and then a new season would begin, and I would be less poor. That was my plan. Just before the season began, I shared my plan with Lisa. You should really talk about these kind of plans with your wife before you get married. I said, Lisa, when the season ends and I graduate, I plan on coaching baseball. Lisa's response was direct and it was sobering. Pat, I don't want to be married to a baseball coach. 57 hours, poor, really poor, and I no longer had a plan for my life. Up until that time in my life, success on the baseball field had defined success in my life. I bet by now you can see where this is going. My life circumstances, they traveled with me as the season began. I desperately needed success, something good to happen in my life to restore hope. Unfortunately, the stress won, and I watched the last 25 games of my baseball career from the dugout. At 23 years old, I needed a brown paper bag just to breathe. I also needed 4 trips to the hospital to confirm what I already knew, that I was not having a heart attack. I also knew that if something didn't change in my life, I would likely have a heart attack. What I really needed in life was to change the definition of success for my life. Up until that time, it was all about me. Desperate, I made a choice. I prayed and I made an appointment. I visited church. There was no service. It was just me and the greatest coach of all time, the Almighty Father. I entered church that day exhausted with my brown paper bag. I left church that day with a new definition of success for life. I left without the specifics about what I would do to become less poor, but I left with hope. I left trusting that there was indeed a plan for my life to change the world. But first, I had to change my world, and that required me to change my definition of success. I left that day with a new game plan, a new definition of success in life. To serve others before self and expect nothing in return. To sacrifice for others in life and expect nothing in return. And to forgive others in life, including myself, and expect nothing in return. For the last 36 years of my life, I've been indeed doing what I always hoped to do, coach, just not baseball, but life. I've coached my family. I've also coached thousands of others in my 36-year career, and I hope today to give you a little bit of coaching as well. My coaching playbook, it's always the same, regardless if I'm at home or in the workplace, anywhere. Serve others, sacrifice for others, forgive others, and expect nothing in return. If you do, it'll change your world, and then you can change the world for the better. Which leads us to today. Change the world. I crossed paths with our guest for the first time 25 years ago. He was already a successful pastor and author. At the time, his vision was to train leaders around the world so they could change the world. Big stuff. We became one of his first clients in 1997. At the time, I was building one of Fortune magazine's best places to work in America and one of the top mortgage banking companies in the Southeast. And his fingerprints are on me, and they're on my leadership, and therefore they're on all of those that I've coached. While I was busy building a best place to work, well, he was busy too, writing 85 books that would sell over 40 million copies. His books are read by leaders throughout the world, and he's arguably the voice of our generation on the topic of leadership, relationships, and success. And he's here today to inspire you and to educate you, to ensure you leave your mark and do your part. Change the world. All right, so I'm going to ask all of you the question, what is your definition of success in life? There is no right answer. It's just your answer, right? Because all of us are on our own paths in life, doing our own thing. What is your definition for success in life?
Success to me is when you can live comfortably without struggling and getting to where you want to be in life with your goals.
Success to me means to achieve all my goals and just to be happy.
My definition for success in life is most definitely going to be living enjoyably and comfortably and achieving, if not all of your goals, most of them.
I think as soon as I figure out what path I want to go on, I think making a change for other people is what I want to do.
My definition for success is probably just to be happy and be happy with who I'm with and where I am and make sure to be able to help people as I go.
My definition of success in life would also have to be if I'm happy enough that I've achieved my goals, then I think I've succeeded with myself.
Just leaving my footprint, being known for something, being the best what I can be, and being happy.
I feel like my definition of success is to just be happy, be successful, and be able to help everybody that you can come across.
John Maxwell, welcome to Personal and Professional Best.
Thanks, Pat. Great to be with you and all the people that are part of your program. I'm very excited about what you're doing and why you're doing it, so thanks for letting me have a little part in it.
Well, it's been a long time since we've gotten a chance to see each other, but I hear tell that you've been changing the world since we saw each other last. So let's get down to business. First things first, John, because people know you based on the work that you do, the many, many, many books that you've written, your speaking capabilities. But what I'd like to have them know is some things about you that maybe most don't know. So tell us your story.
Well, my story is I won the parent lottery. Great parents. And my father just passed away last year, July 4th, literally on July 4th, 2020. He was 98, and he was my lifetime mentor. Really, I've had a lot of mentors in my life, but he's the one that stayed present with me through the whole time. So big loss, but had a great upbringing. I'm the middle child, older brother, younger sister. Probably the greatest thing that parents did for us, besides the spiritual foundation and the unconditional love they gave us, is that when we all three of us, when we got to the 7th grade, my father put us on a reading program. He would pick a book. What we did is we got paid an allowance to read books. Our allowance didn't come from chores. All my friends, in fact, I went to him one time, I said, Dad, all my friends, they get paid, to do chores, and I think that's a good idea, don't you think? He said, I think it's a terrible idea. He said, you do chores because you're part of the family. I don't pay you to be part of the family. So that's out. In fact, he said, let me explain it to you this way. When you were born, you already owed your mother for room and board for 9 months. So, shut up and take out the garbage. We're not paying you for that. We do that for each other. But he said, I will pay you to read good books. And so he would pick the books out, and what he would do is whatever the book cost, he would give us that much money when we finished reading it. And so our dinner conversations at night were about the books we were reading. Life changing. So by the time I graduated from high school, you just name any basic book that would be about attitude, success in life. I had read it. In fact, I was on a plane going to where was I going? I was going to Brazil, Sao Paulo. And while I was on the plane, there was a magazine that was a very interesting article. It said the 25 most important books to read to be successful in life. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. So I picked it up and I read it. And it had the book and then had maybe 3 paragraphs that would describe the book. And so when I finished the article, I thought, I read most of those books when I was in high school. I went back and I counted out of the 25, 19 of them I had read by the time I graduated from high school. And the only reason I hadn't read the other 6 is none of those had been written yet. And so this was huge. So my brother, who's been very successful in the business world, my sister, who was overseeing a hospital when she was still in her late 20s, I mean, we could all go back and we could point and say, we had put within us values and principles of life that set us up for the rest of our days. And so, that's a story that's not known a lot, but it's just, it was life-changing. And so I did that with my children. I paid them to read books. I do that now with my grandchildren. I pay them to read books. And it's just one of the wonderful practices in helping kids be their very best. And so anyway, that's not the whole life story, but that's one part of it.
No, but you know what? That's really, really, really compelling. So my dad is now reverently known in our family, being the patriarch, as the source.
The source.
And so it sounds to me, I was going to ask you the question, who was the source in your life? But now I know the answer. It was your pops, who poured into you and your brother and sister life messages. Yeah, so pretty powerful stuff. You ought to write another book telling parents what they ought to do for their children, which is to pay them to read books, because it would certainly bode well. Copy the blueprint of success, right?
Oh, I think so. And not only that, but I mean, like, I read How to Win Friends and Influence People when I was in the 7th grade. And then my dad said, well, would you like to take some Dale Carnegie courses? And so with my dad, I took a couple of Carnegie courses before I graduated from high school, one on remembering names, and he would be with us. Or if we were going to a conference, he would take us. And I mean, he was the president of a college, but he'd say, I want you boys with me. He'd take us out of school. We'd go to these conferences, sit with him, learn, discuss what we were learning. And I just know this. I think a parent, if they're intentional, can really get the runway good and straight and long for their kids to launch, and he sure did for us. That's for certain.
I didn't think that we were going to get that as a big takeaway, but thank you, because it's a huge takeaway. Being a parent is the most important job I've ever had in my life. Forget the businesses that I've run, and to be able to invest in the next generation and to deposit compelling transcendent messages in their lives. That's what your dad did for you. John, I got a question to ask you. What is your definition of success?
I began to ask myself, what is success to me? And I came up with this definition that really works for me, and that is, success is having the people who know me the best love and respect me the most. I think that's success. Because, I write books, but I could fake it out there, I guess. I speak on platforms to a lot of people. I guess I could fake it there, but you can't fake it at home. You can't fake it with your children. You can't fake it with the people who really know you. And when the people who know you the best love and respect you the most, I think that's a major statement upon who you are, what your character is, and you can go bank on that kind of a person. So that became my definition of success, still is. So for what is it, maybe almost 40 years, that's just kind of how I mean, success certainly I don't think is writing a lot of books or selling. I mean, I think we go after, what we would call recognition of success, and don't understand that the core of success, again, is I think based on values and who you are as a person. I think that's more important than anything else.
You're 2 for 2. 2 nuggets of wisdom have just come out in those 2 questions. So just be yourself, because this is amazing.
Well, that's it. That's probably all I got. Maybe the program should be, hey, cut it out. Cut. Maybe that's just probably all the old man can produce.
I've always asked people a question that are in business, like, the purpose of business is fill in the blank. And most people say profit, and that's what most people think. And I've always thought, you just described it, that if we profit others, if we invest intentionally in the lives of others to bring the best out of others as a leader or otherwise, we're going to wind up not only doing things that are going to have those that are in our life look up to us most, just like you described, But we're also going to get to that other place, which is the worldly successes that people actually, and you certainly are an example of that, where, you know, people will call you and ask you to come speak and you know, obviously invest in you to do such. So tell me this, because I've met a lot of people in my pathway who I think that really successful people are lucky. And you've written a book about this, but how do successful people think? And how is that different than others?
Well, I did write a book on how successful people think, and in fact, it's been a very popular, it's been a million-plus seller. And it really came out of a conversation with my father one night. We were in Hawaii. We were celebrating his and Mom's 50th anniversary, so all of us, the extended family was there, and everybody had gone to bed except Dad and me. And I said, Dad, talk to me about your thinking. You've just been so positive, and you're so encouraging, and talk to me about it. And he said something very interesting. He said, you know, I'm not a natural encourager. He said, I'm kind of naturally melancholy. And he said, I had to make a decision to think better. And so he told me the story. He grew up in a little town in Ohio called Georgetown, very southern area, close to Cincinnati. He said there were only about 1,000 people in the town. He said, I was a hardworking kid, and so there were 3 families in Georgetown that seemed to have all the money, and the rest of us were kind of all poor. And he said, I did chores for all 3 of those families, and so I was with them a lot, and I kept asking myself, what makes them different than everyone else? And he said, by the time I was a junior in high school, I had come to the conclusion that they thought differently. They just thought differently than the rest of us. And so he said, I determined to learn how to think right. And he was so determined to do it that he read Norman Vincent Peale's Power of Positive Thinking and made a contact with Norman Vincent Peale, and so Peale became a mentor of his. And in fact, when I was in the 7th grade in Columbus, Ohio, he took me to Veterans Memorial Auditorium not only to hear Norman Vincent Peale, but to also meet him. And that was an amazing experience in itself. But that night's conversation, I went to my room, and I never went to bed. I immediately started writing, and I said, my father just gave me a nugget I've got to build off of. I believe the greatest gap between successful and unsuccessful people is the thinking gap. And I'm not talking about IQ. I'm not talking about being smart. I'm talking about how people think. So in my book, I identified 11 thinking patterns of successful people that were different than unsuccessful people, and it's just been a real practical book. But yeah, for example, my father was coming up toward the end of the Depression, and in Georgetown nobody had any jobs, and so there was a food line every day. But my father, during this time when everybody else was standing in line for food, had 3 part-time jobs. And I said, Dad, how did you pull that off? He said, I didn't have a job. I was like everyone else. So he said, I'd go to the local hardware store and I'd tell the owner, look, I know you can't pay me today, but I love to work and I'm out of work. So could I work for free for you today? If you'll just tell me what to do, I'll just work for you for free. And he said, and he said after the owner would get over the fact that he really was going to work for him for free, he'd say, well, yeah, I've got some things. And he'd give him a list. So my dad would work all day for him. At the end of the day, he'd come back and say, thanks for letting me work for you today. And by this time, the owner says, hey, this kid's a hard worker. Oh, my gosh. And he said, I can't pay you. He said, no. He said, I didn't want paid. He said, I just want an opportunity to help you and to add value to you. And he said, there'll be a time when this depression's over and you may need somebody to work for you. And if you ever do, would you think of me? I would be glad to come and work for you. He said, now you know my work habits. And hey, the next day, go to another store. Did the same thing. He did that for 3 straight weeks. Different store every day. Did that, and by the end of 3 weeks, he had 3 part-time jobs. I mean, they'd say, "Hey, we could use you for 10 hours a week. We can pay you for 10. We can't pay you full time." And so everybody else is standing in line, waiting for food. And my dad has 3 part-time jobs right at the end of the Depression, and it's all thinking. He thought differently than everyone else thought. And it's just stories like that I tell in the book. It's just the fact that outside of sharing my faith, because I am a person of faith, but outside of doing that, if I could do one thing for a person, I would sit down with them and I would talk to them about how they think, because I can tell you that is a huge difference maker, no doubt.
You know, that's amazing because you just answered the question that I asked you. Thank you so much. And it's just a gold mine of information because most people think completely the opposite of that, that these bad things have happened to me and why me and why me. And what you just described is taking completely a different road in life. And that's how successful people think. They always think about being successful and doing something, not necessarily for themselves. As you described, your dad was doing it for those business owners, right? And they just were going to bring reciprocity back in the relationship. Okay, we have 6 categories in our program, John. We have family and relationships, we have health and fitness, we have personal finance, fun and recreation, faith and community service, and we put business last intentionally because we think if you get everything else in life right, you'll get business right. We put family relationships first because it's my belief that the best in life, people that become the best version of themselves, they absolutely get relationships right. They know how to succeed in relationships, and to the extent that how people think to be successful is important, then how they act specifically in relationships. You've written a book about that as well. So tell us about the roadmap, the blueprint to be successful in relationships in life.
I think relationships are the foundation for success. I wrote a book called Winning with People, and in it I have what I call people principles, Pat. And but the thesis of Winning with People was very simple. Most people can trace their successes and their failures back to relationships in their lives. And I can. If you would talk to me about my misses and my hiccups and my failures and my losses, I could go back there and I could tell you the story, but I would also tell you it was based on some relationships I had that weren't the best. And if you say, well, talk to me about your successes, I can go there, but people are there too. And these people just made the difference for me and added value to me and were pluses in my life as I hope to be a plus in their life. And so when I think of relationships, I think we have a choice. And in fact, when I do relationship teaching, I can sum relationship teaching down to just basically one sentence. And it's very simple. People are either a plus or a minus in other people's lives. They're either adding value and making a difference, or they're, to be honest with you, they're a drag. They're taking value from people, and we all know people that do that. And Pat, I don't think people intentionally are a drag. I don't think people get up in the day and say, "Boy, I'd like to mess John Maxwell's life up," or I'd like to wear Pat blood out today. I don't think that's the case at all. I think they're just basically selfish, and they've never looked beyond themselves, and they have a reaping mindset instead of a sowing mindset. And it goes back to our friend Zig Ziglar many years ago. When I was a kid in Dayton, Ohio, I heard Zig say when I was in my 20s, if you'll first help people get what they want, they'll help you get everything that you need in life. And I remember I said, "Ooh, this is huge." But before that, I was trying to get everybody to get on my train and do my vision and get on my team, and it was all about, help me. And all of a sudden, Zig says, "No, just go help others." And if you add value to them, you're going to get value received back. And so that day, I went from a reaper to a sower. And I quit worrying about reaping. I just said I got to keep sowing, because the law of sowing is if you keep sowing, you're going to reap. Reaping's automatic. Sowing's not. So if I'm waiting on the reaping part, I'm not. What did you sow? What did you give? How did you add value? Who did you help? Were you the first to help? Well, all those questions. So today, every day I sow. So when I thought about you today, I thought, I've got to sow into Pat. I got to sow into the program. I got to sow into people that watch you, that learn from you and grow from you. And so every day I just sow.
I think you ought to write a book. Oh, that's right. You've written 80-some books. So you're doing exactly what I think you should be doing, which is taking what I would define as transcendent messages and you being the messenger, being a transcendent messenger of those messages. These are fundamental truths that exist, and you're packaging them and sharing them with people. Thank you for doing that. Thank you, because you've sown into my life. You started back in the late 90s when I first met you, and I've been influenced and affected by everything. You were a net plus deposit in my life. You know what I think, John? I think that people get hurt. We all do in life. And then people that are most successful or best in relationships, they put the hurt someplace, they forgive it, and they move on and free themselves to be their best. The people that we meet that are those selfish folks, they're traveling with all that pain and they're limited.
All the garbage.
Yeah. All the garbage they take with them. So let's talk about that, shifting with pain in mind, right? There's two types of adversity we always tell folks that are a part of our program. There is the unwise choices we make, where we actually wake up in the morning and make a decision that winds up coming back to haunt us, that could have been avoidable. And our good friend, Andy Stanley, just wrote a great book, Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets, which we had Andy on just recently. That's the first kind of adversity. The other kind of adversity is we're doing everything right, making wise choices, and then something shows up in our life that is called adversity, right, in its own story for us. And I've always thought that that's God's way of planting a seed that's intended to make us a lot better, but we've got to accept it and we've got to grow through that season. What's your roadmap, your formula plan to get through adversity in life?
Well, you know, Scott Peck wrote a book several years ago called The Road Less Traveled. It's a classic book, okay? And by the way, Andy's new book you just talked about, I've read it. It's outstanding too. Very good. But in Scott Peck's book, his opening statement in his book is, life is difficult. And the way I do it is, Pat, when I'm teaching a lot of times, I'll just put my arm up in the air like this and let visually people sink this in. And then I'll say to them, everything worthwhile in your life is uphill. Everything. If you want to have a good marriage, it's uphill. You have to work for it. It doesn't come to you. Nothing comes to you. Everything worthwhile. Your dreams are there. Your hopes are there. Everything worthwhile is uphill, and it's a mindset. Because if I somehow think things are free, things are easy, things are quick, things flow to me, I'm going to be in trouble. You see, most people they don't lead their life; they accept their life. And so intentional living is huge. Intentional living begins with the fact that everything worthwhile is uphill. Here's the issue. Most people, they have uphill hopes, Pat, but they have downhill habits. And you can't go uphill with downhill habits. And so this whole process of intentionally understanding that life is difficult, that I'm going to have things happen to me that I didn't cause it. You know, like you said, there's two kinds, and by the way, Pat, I've had plenty of adversity from stupid decisions I made too. So let's.
Me too.
Okay, so sometimes I'm kind of like, I had a mentor one time who looked at me and said, "John, you're just one step from stupid," and I just love that because I think it's true. I don't think we're like a mile from stupid. I think we're all one step from stupid. So, but this whole idea of choices. So I've been there. I've made bad choices. But there are a whole bunch of things happen to me. They just happen to me because life is hard. It's uphill. I think if I begin to embrace uphill, then adversity doesn't throw me at all. I mean, it's, oh, well, yeah, of course this happens. Of course this didn't go well. Of course that, and it's okay because I've embraced. But if I don't embrace uphill, I won't embrace adversity. And now I'm in trouble because now adversity really throws me. It blindsides me. It knocks me down, and I become a victim. And what happened to me? It all happened. It was all because I didn't start off with a very true principle about life, and that is, it's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy, and it's in the uphill that we become great. It's our greatness is in our struggle. And you know, and if life is easy, if you're coasting, you just got to understand it's downhill. It's, you know, hey, when you get to the bottom, you're going to realize you're at the bottom. And so I think it's a mindset, again, of embracing uphill.
Well, if you think about it, and I love what you just said, you know, there's nothing worthwhile in this world without making sacrifice. And oftentimes there's some pain between here and there. If you just think about our health, working out, right? I don't really like getting on my Peloton. I see it, I look at it, and I'm thinking there's pain there. But when I finish it, that intention going uphill, I know on the other side of it and how I feel afterwards. So I think if people have adversity that they did not choose for themselves, that shows up in their life, if they would just have perspective that it's God's way of planting a seed in their life so that they can get a lot better, grow capabilities that otherwise they did not have, and then don't be the victim. Actually see it as just another part of our road uphill. I love that analogy. Hey, I'm going to get into a topic now that I think you know a bit about. In fact, most of the people that are in the know in the world would argue that in our generation, you are the voice on this topic in our generation that most would listen to on this topic, and that's about leadership. So simply, what do the best leaders do and what don't they do?
Well, there's only one thing that all leaders have in common, because my work is international, so I travel all around the world. And there's really, regardless of country or culture, the only thing that I find that leaders have in common, Pat, is that leaders see more than others see, and they see before others see. And I just simply say they see a bigger picture, they see more, but they also see before, which in the time that we live now, before is really important. When I started off as a young leader 50 years ago, you didn't have to see before. Speed wasn't of essence. You just had to see more. Today, speed is of essence. In fact, I wrote a book called Leader Shift. And the book Leader Shift is all about speed. It's all about how do you pivot. It's become very popular during COVID because everybody has to kind of move quickly. They got to be agile and that whole process. So the thing that all leaders have in common is they see more than before. In fact, I tell people, if you're at the table and everybody else sees it before you see it, and they see it bigger than you see it, you're not the leader at the table. Just face the fact, okay? Now, that's what they have in common. What they don't have in common is leaders come in all kinds of sizes, all shapes. Some have positions, some don't have positions. Some they have different personalities, they have different backgrounds. There's no commonality of how a leader is formed. And so the uniqueness, the diversity, the personality of different leaders, that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing because people need different personalities and different experiences to be led well. So there's a lot of diversity in that area, but the one common thing is, again, is leaders just see more than before. So whenever I'm looking, like in your company or something, if I'm looking for leaders, which I'm always looking for leaders, I'm always looking for a person that can see the big picture, and I'm looking for people that can see it quickly. And I think that when you think of COVID and what's happening, I think one of the things that's happened in that process is it's separated the pretenders from the players. And adversity and crisis, I've heard people say, it makes a person. I said, no, it reveals a person. It reveals who you are. The values is what makes you. Values is what holds you. That's the anchor. That's what holds you during a crisis. The crisis doesn't make you; it just reveals you. And I think when adversity comes, that's when you really find out who your real leaders are. You see people that stand and you get surprised. You get, oh my gosh, they folded. Wow, they didn't show up last night, and that whole process. So hopefully that's kind of helpful to the people that are watching you, that they'll understand the differences, hopefully.
John, we've got like 10 great places to go right now. We're going to cut these down and we're going to continue to remarket them to our folks, because so much of what you said is just profound, life-changing, so simple. But listen, when it comes from someone who has accomplished what you've accomplished in the world, and I know how humble you are as well, it's just amazing, because it really are these are the life lessons. Thank God for your dad. I mean, what an amazing source he was to pour into you and your brother and sister the way he did, and really to affect millions. Like, he's got fingerprints on people all over the world now.
Yeah, he still lives. He passed away, but he still lives.
That's right, exactly, because he's affecting lives of so many people. So I've got news, and that is that you've got a new book. And I saw your Instagram post, and I've known you for a long time, and I felt your heart so deeply moved in the work that you did. Tell us about Change Your World, how anyone, anywhere can make a difference.
Yeah, thank you. It just came out. In fact, I just happened, Pat, to have one here. And let me just say this. I've written 86 books. This is the most important book I've ever written. There are some books you can't write until you've had enough experience and maturity. And the bottom line is, this is my legacy book. This is all about the fact that you and I can make a positive difference in our world. I called it Change Your World. I didn't say change the world. That's too big. But how about your world? How about your family? How about the people that you work with? How about your friends? How about people down at the club? This is all about how do you change your world. And what makes it work is very simple. We have been doing Change Your World stuff internationally for 7 years. We've been in Guatemala, Paraguay, Costa Rica, and Pat, we have discovered through small groups, we call them transformation tables, groups of 6, 8, maybe up to 10, in small groups, that if you meet on a regular basis and you teach and talk about and live out and work out values, it's all about values, teaching values. The problem not only with America, but the problem with the world is we've lost our way, we've lost our values. And when you have no core, when you have no values, then an empty bag doesn't sit up straight. I mean, an empty bag just falls, and then a little wind and it just blows away, and there's nothing sustaining or substantive about it. And so what we learned is, and this is beautiful, we learned that when you sit around in tables and start talking about values, lives really begin to change big time. You talked about earlier on your program about adversity and some people not being able to get through it and how they carry their luggage, their baggage with them. And one of the values, we have 25 that we teach. And then it's all in this book. This book teaches you how to do a small group. This is a game plan book. And in fact, we tell you how to go get a free assessment so you can figure out what your values are. We have if they go to Change Your World, we have people to help it. All the resources are free for the transformation table. So everything this is your blueprint if you really want to change your world. And what we've discovered, let's take one value quickly, forgiveness. That's a value. And we have found that when people around the table start talking about forgiveness, life change is undeniable. All of a sudden, people have been holding on to stuff they don't need to hold on to, and they get into a group where they hear other people and their stories, and all of a sudden they get courage to go start forgiving. And when they start forgiving, all of a sudden the grudges and the disappointments and the hurts and all the negative stuff begin to disappear. Now, that's just one value. I mean, there are 25 of them in here. But like in the business community where you are, in Guatemala, the second largest bank, they took all their employees through these values. Okay, they have transformation tables, 10,000 employees, so it's a big bank, 10,000 of them. The CEO of the bank flew me down and said, we have 2,000 of our clients, John. All I want you to talk about is the values transformation table. And I said, because he said, I want all my clients to do this in their companies because it's changed the company. He introduced me this way. He said, when we started teaching transformation values in our company, 3 things happened. 1, our profits went up. And he said, I'm going to tell you why. Values such as integrity, hard work, the stuff that makes a business really a successful business, the values are there. So he said, my employees started embracing these values and they began to have a change in their work habits. He said, number 2 is, he said, all of a sudden we have a leadership culture in our company. Now here's why. In the tables, every week they take turns, each person facilitating that week's value. So every person is practicing leadership. How do you develop leaders? By practicing leadership. He said all of a sudden, we saw these leaders come out of these tables, people that were evolving. We said, we didn't have any clue they had any leadership gift in them. And so he said, now we have more leaders than we have positions for them. We've got a leadership culture. And then here's what really warmed my heart. And here's why I do what I do. And this is why I'm passionate about what I'm passionate about. And this is why I'll have no finish line in my life. I'll do it until I die. This is very simple. He said, number 3. The families of our employees have beautifully changed. What are they doing? Pat, they're going home. They've been doing the transformation tables at work, and they're saying this is the value we're studying, and it just bleeds beautifully right into that family. And as I sat and listened to the CEO of that bank, I said to myself, the best investment a bank can ever make, the best investment a business can ever make, is to pour good values into their people. And we had, and so whether you're a mom with your children, you want to start do it with your family, or you're a business person such as you, Pat, this Change Your World book is a blueprint that will really change, I think, your world. And I'm incredibly excited about this.
Well, your energy is always high, but I just felt the volume go up when you started talking about your life work. And I'll tell you, interesting, our staff, our folks here, they just experienced last month something we kicked off for this year, which is to do small group together on the journey of becoming our best together. And so the idea of the book, the timing of the book, the purpose of the book, as you just shared, they're going to think this was a setup, which you just shared about small group. But
we didn't even talk about it.
They know me better. They know me better than that. They know my values would not have that happen. I'm always transparent and honest with them. John, I can't tell you how much I appreciate having had God cross paths mine and yours years and years ago. I've taken the deposit you made in my life, and that deposit has affected many, many other lives. So your pops, the source, and my pops, my source, have done really, really, really good work because they're affecting mankind exactly the way you'd like to have it, which is to be able to change the world and make it better. So thank you so much for everything you do, and thank you for being our guest today on Personal and Professional Best.
It's been my pleasure and privilege, and let's keep in touch, Pat. I sure love what you do.
So I'm going to ask you again the same question. What's your definition for success in life?
My definition for success would definitely being able to help others and not always trying to get stuff, but helping to give.
Success now means to me to make the ones around me proud.
My definition for success in life is living comfortably, doing what I want to do, which is teaching, and enjoying it and just living a happy life.
My definition of success is still the same. I want to help people out, but I guess there's nothing stopping me from starting now and doing that, making that change.
I would definitely say it's to help people more, and with the career that I want to go in, I know that I can give back to the community and make sure that I can live comfortably as well as they can live comfortably.
I think it has definitely changed now, and I also do want to help people because I want to be a counselor in the mental health field. So I just want to give back to them.
Well, I mean, like I said, I want to leave my footprint, but at the same time, I got to bring my boys with me. I have to have them having success along. I have to have a team around me, of course, with people that support me and people that have my best interests in mind.
I feel like now my definition of success is to not only make myself happy, but make the people around me happy as well.
Wow. Thank you, John Maxwell, for sharing your time and your wisdom with us on Personal and Professional Best. My 3 big takeaways. First, what we feed our minds, it can change our lives. John shared that he won the parent lottery. His pops paid him not to do chores, but to read inspirational books to feed his mind. And this helped develop his gifts, and he used those gifts to change the world. Parents, for your children, how about encouraging more books versus TV? And adults, how about more books versus TV or social media? It's no contest which is better. The second big takeaway, the best, they think differently. They accept adversity, and they find the blessing in it, and they learn how to adapt and grow because of it. And finally, and my most important takeaway, I asked John his personal definition of success. He didn't tell us about the number of books that he's written or sold, or the number of Fortune 500 companies he's spoken to. And he didn't tell us about how much money he made in his career. Instead, John shared his definition of success, that those in his life that know him best would love and respect him the most because of his character and values. Wow. Hearing that definition from John, it changed my world. If you adopt John's definition of success and live by it every day, it can change your world too. In fact, it can change the world. Thank you for joining us on today's Personal and Professional Best program. Best is waiting. Meet you there.